This video is in affiliation with Collingwood Insurance. There's a great deal via the link right now, but more on that one later. So, you wake up in the morning, go to get in your car, you turn the key on, all the lights on the dashboard come on, but you go to turn the actual engine on and all you hear is or something like that, clicking. Well, it means your battery is dead. Almost dead, enough power to power up your ignition, the little symbols on your dashboard to say that your ignition's on, your electricity or your electric circuit is live, but not enough to actually turn your engine on. What can you do? What you can do in this situation to get you out of trouble is bump start, or push start, or clutch start. Different words for the same thing. Basically, you've got to get the car moving, either by getting someone to push you or by using a hill. And once the car is moving, you can then start it. However, it doesn't work in automatics. At least I don't know anyone who's managed to make it work in an automatic, and especially a traditional torque converter automatic, I can't see it working in one of those. Just before I do this, I must explain the dangers first, because doing this can be dangerous. When your engine's off, you're probably not going to have much braking. Your brakes will work, but you'll have to press a lot harder to get them to work. You may be able to press them once or twice if there's still residual vacuum in the vacuum chamber. Don't want to get too technical, but basically when your engine's off, normally you get away with up to 3 uses of the brake before it gets really hard. And if your car's been sitting for a long time, your brake pedal might be really hard to begin with, so you really will have to push that brake pedal very hard to slow down. Also, nearly every car these days has power steering. That also relies on the engine. So although your steering will work, it's going to be very heavy and you're going to have to put a lot of muscle in to get the wheel turned to keep the car going where you want to go, which is why you don't really want to be doing this on bends. So firstly, I'm going to show you how to do it in my Seat Leon with a key, because not all cars have keys these days. So I've put the key in ignition and I've turned the ignition on. That's important. You see the dials have lit up, so my electrics are working. Therefore, the engine's computer now is ready to add fuel and spark once the engine starts turning. I just need to get the engine turning. To get the engine turning, I'm going to use this hill I have here. You may not be able to see it on camera, but this is a bit of a gradient. It will get the car rolling, not quickly, but it will get going. If I didn't have this, I would use someone to push. I don't have an assistant today. Actually, I always do these videos on my own at the moment, so I have to use the hill. What I need to do is put the clutch down, put it in first gear, take the handbrake off and let the hill start to roll the car. Once I get to about 5 miles an hour, I can lift the clutch up to the bite point. That will start to turn the engine. I'll hold it at the bite point, then the engine should fire into life. Once that happens, I can come off the clutch completely or push the clutch all the way down. It depends on whether or not I want to continue or stop. You can use second gear. The problem with second gear is it doesn't spin the engine as quickly, so it's less likely to start as easily. But with second gear, you're not going to slow down as much either. So if someone's struggling to push you, it may be better in second gear. I usually use first. When I say usually, I haven't actually had to do this many times in my life, but I've used first and it's worked. Let's see if it's going to work then. So the ignition's on, clutch down, first gear, and no one's coming, so handbrake off. The car's starting to roll, and I'm going to need at least 5 miles an hour really. 10 would be ideal, but I'm going to try it at 5. So steering's quite heavy. I can control it at 5 now. So lift the clutch to the bite point, and it started. Gorgeous. Actually, the car went down to a stop, but I just managed to turn the engine over. I pushed the clutch down straight away there because it was so slow that if I didn't push the clutch down, it would have kangarooed, because this car cannot go slower than 4 miles an hour in first. So pushing the clutch down allowed that engine to start. I think what I really needed there was a bit more speed. That was 5 miles an hour, I believe. This time I'm going to try a bit more and see if that can help. So I will turn the engine off. I'm going to turn the ignition on again. I'm already in first gear with the handbrake off. Clutch is down. No one's coming. Come off the brake. And this time I'll give it a few more miles an hour. Come on, gravity, give me some speed. It's taking quite a while to speed up. Ideally should have a steeper hill. That's all I've got here. So 6, 7, 8. I think it will start quite easily this time. There we go, it's just started there. I pushed the clutch down again to make sure the engine could start properly and rev itself into life. and then I brought the clutch back up again once it was properly started so that I could continue driving. It's worth mentioning that this will not work if you have a completely flat battery, but that is rarely the case. Every time I've had a flat battery in a car, I've had enough battery to turn the ignition on. There's enough juice in there to get the ignition on, but not enough to turn the engine over. So as long as you can get the ignition on and the lights and symbols come on the dashboard, it should work. Turn off the stereo, turn off the fan, anything else that uses energy, because you want all available energy going into your car's ignition system. You may have noticed there, I pushed the clutch down the moment the engine starts. And I always do that because I like the engine to be free to start without being connected to the wheels. So I lift the clutch to the bite point to get the engine turning. Once I hear the engine ignite and fire into life, I push the clutch down, so therefore it can rev itself up a little bit like most engines like to do when they start. And once it's started, then I'll re-engage the engine to the wheels by lifting the clutch up and probably adding some gas as well. And whilst the cameras are set up, I thought I may as well give it a go in second gear. I've never tried it in second gear before, so let's see how that works. So ignition on, clutch down, second gear, and when no one's coming, handbrake off and the car will start rolling again. I can turn it using the wheel, although it is very stiff. It's 3 miles an hour, 4 miles an hour, come on, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to lift the clutch to the bite point, and to be fair, that seemed to start a little bit easier that time. So maybe I've learned something from doing this video. In my head, second gear wouldn't turn the engine as fast, and it doesn't because of a different ratio. But the advantage is second gear does not slow the car down as much, so therefore it may be easier to actually start it, because although you're not spinning the engine as quickly, you'll be spinning it for longer. So maybe second gear is a better bet. So now I'm in a Mazda 3, and this Mazda 3 has keyless entry. So although it has a key, you don't have to use the key. That can stay in your pocket, and use this push button start. One press will release the steering lock, and another press will turn the ignition on. If you held the clutch down and pressed it, it would start the engine, but of course I want to start the engine by rolling it down the hill. That's the whole point in this video, so I'm not going to hold the clutch down and press that button. So ignition's on now, the engine management system is ready for that engine to start turning, and then it will add fuel and spark and get the engine running. So I'm going to try second gear again, because I quite liked that last time. So second gear, there is a car coming, so I'm going to wait for that to go. Almost gone. And when that goes, I'm going to take the handbrake off and let it roll. Handbrake off now, and it's starting to roll. Steering feels similar to the Leon, very heavy, but it's manageable, to be fair, once you get going a little bit. How fast am I going? 4, 5 miles an hour. Let's try now. So clutch up to the bite point, and it kicked in. Quite easy actually. Yeah, second gear definitely works better. I didn't even have to push the clutch back down again, because by the time I'd brought the clutch to the bite point and the car had actually started, when the car started, the engine speed and the clutch speed was already very similar anyway, so it wasn't such an issue. So now I'm in a Vauxhall VX220. I'm going to use this head cam because there's nowhere to mount the cam for the dials. Hopefully you can see a head and dials as I do this, and my feet. This is one of these annoying cars that has a key and a button. And it's not like the button on the Mazda 3, because the button on the Mazda 3, you press it, let go, and then the engine starts, and when it's finished starting, it's done. With this car, you actually have to hold the button in until it starts, which is the same as basically putting the key in, holding the key on until it starts. It's just a bit of a gimmick for this car, I believe. Now, I'm a little bit worried about this car because it hasn't got a factory engine, a factory standard engine. It hasn't got a factory computer. And therefore it's not going to be as well programmed. It doesn't start as well as a factory car. When you start it, then it goes. It takes a little bit of time. So I'm not sure how this is going to go. I'm going to try and keep my head nice and still. So key in, ignition on. There you go, ignition's on. That's the fuel pump priming. I'm going to go with second gear again, because that seems to be working very well. So clutch down, second gear. Not going to press the button to start it like I'd normally do. All I need to do now is let this handbrake off, get some speed, and lift the clutch up. So let's try and keep my head nice and still now so you can see what happens. There's a car coming up behind. When that car's gone, I'll let the handbrake off. Let's check my blind spot. Okay, and now we're rolling. Come on, this is taking a long time. Oh, the speedo's just kicked into life. 4 miles an hour. I'm going to give this one a bit more speed because, as I say, it does take a bit more to start this car. Get the gas ready as well. That's 5. Is it going to go more than 5? There you go, 6 or 7 I'd say. All right, let's give it a go. Yay! Pleased with that. That worked. It works also in reverse if you're rolling backwards. So if you can only roll the car backwards, say if it's downhill behind you, you can use reverse to do the same thing, but be warned, obviously doing it backwards is a lot harder. The first time I ever did it was when I was going backwards. It was in 2005 in my blue Vauxhall Astra, registration N42, so November 42 HVS, Hotel Victor Sierra. And I had left the light on overnight and I was late for work. Running into my car, oh, not starting, just making that clicking sound. I knew exactly what I'd done. Noticed that the light switch was on. Quite surprised that that little light managed to run my battery down, so it couldn't have been a very good battery. It couldn't have had much life left in it. So as it was a downhill a bit backwards, I put it in reverse, opened the door, put my leg out to give it some assistance because it wasn't much of a hill, and then with the ignition obviously lifted the clutch up and luckily it started. I can't remember if I did make it to work on time, that's 15 years ago now, but it does work in reverse, just be very careful. Well, I hope this video helps you get out of a sticky situation one day when you get a flat battery. If you think it will, please give the video a thumbs up and check out Collingwood and Confused in the description. Collingwood are great if you're learning to drive and want to insure yourself on a friend or family member's car, because you can do so without affecting their policy or risking their no claims bonus. That takes away some of the stress when it comes to learning to drive if you want to get a learner driver policy with them. There's short-term policies and long-term policies available. If you cancel a long-term policy, you do get a pro rata refund for the remaining term you haven't used. And if you use the link, there's up to 35% off and a £20 Amazon gift card in there too. Using the link does support the channel. I also recommend you compare insurers, so go to confused.com to compare many. Confused compares many insurers. You can do one quote and play with that quote, so you can increase the excess, decrease the excess, add a name driver, take a name driver, change some things like legal cover to see how that changes your quote and how that compares to others like Collingwood. Using the link in the description does support this channel, so thank you very much. Subscribe to get my future videos, and until the next one, cheerio.